as a former Belarusian student and as a student now, the main task is to help students and young people. Yes, because the Belarusian students need more help and support because still there are so many students in Belarusian prisons, and even more young people are also forced to leave Belarus because of danger being arrested or accused in some crime.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Shafer, your host of Talks with Dr. Shafer. I'm a physician, mom, life coach, musician, author, publisher, and I am passionate about using storytelling as a tool to help you reclaim your story and build your most beautiful future. And today I am so excited to have a wonderful guest who is doing just that with her life after facing immense challenges and still making choices to try to not only help herself and move her story forward, but move forward the story of an entire nation of people. Today, I'm joined by Tatyana Ekelchik. She is a former student of the Belarusian State University who was a part of the student case of protesters who were detained, arrested, and put into prison for 2.5 years by authorities for participating in peaceful protests after the August 2020 elections for president in Belarus. Now, Belarus is far away and far from the minds of many people of the world, but it is so incredibly important for those of us who are not aware of the story of Belarus to become educated on it. Why? Because democracy is really at risk in this part of the world. Unfortunately, President Alexander Lukashenko, who was elected first in 1994, do the math there and process that. So in 1994, Alexander Lukashenko became the president of the Republic of Belarus. And since then, there have been debatable elections where he has come out the president repeatedly without much due process as to understand why, after 30 years and so many opponents, he continues to be elected president. In 2020, it was really the first time that a formidable opponent was allowed to run against him without being, for example, jailed or detained prior to the election. And that was Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya's husband had been running against Alexander Lukashenko, but he was imprisoned. And so Svetlana took it upon herself to run for president in his place. And against all odds and against Alexander Lukashenko, the president at the time's opinion as to whether or not a woman could win the presidency in Belarus, the night of and morning of the day after the election, all polls would have suggested that, in fact, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya did win the presidential elections. And many people in Belarus were elated about how the future would look for their country after so many years of oppression. However, it was reported by the government that Alexander Lukashenko had won the election. And after this was reported, peaceful protests and mass demonstrations erupted throughout the country. Unfortunately, these were quickly met with violence, and thousands upon thousands of innocent Belarusian citizens were beaten, detained, jailed, imprisoned in the wake. Some people died, including a very young citizen of Belarus. And young citizens of Belarus were detained and jailed as well. And Tatyana Ekelchik is one of those people. And I'm so thankful that she is here to share her story She is incredibly brave and resilient. And after 2.5 years in detention and jail, she is here to tell us how she pulled through that and what she is doing now to try to help the people of Belarus and to advocate for a free Belarus. Tatyana, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for such a good introduction and story. I'm really happy to be here and to be able to tell more and more people about Belarus. Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure, and I'm so grateful that you're here. I know that this is a really difficult story to tell, not only because of the experiences that you have had and people that you know have had, but also because of what consequences can be for people who speak up in these circumstances. Can you start from the beginning and tell me the story of how life was like in Belarus before this election and before these protests erupted, and then what motivated you to become a part of them?
Before 2020 year, I think most of Belarusians they already were used to old president. For example, Lukashenko. He won his first elections, as you said, in 1996, and I wasn't even born at that time, and uh, had I had one president all my life. So most of Belarusians, of course, they did not expect such a strong reaction after the falsification in 2020 year, and it was the biggest protest in all history of modern Belarus of time of Lukashenko. In 2020, yeah, protests were the most powerful. And I was a student of the second year at university. As many other students, we were full of hope and ambitions, and we felt like we need to make just a little bit more, just to stand some months maybe, and we're gonna make a future for us. We're gonna change Belarus and live in free new Belarus. As it turns out, it's not so fast process. And of course, when I was arrested and detained, I couldn't expect this. First time, I wasn't even afraid. Of course, everyone were afraid. I was arrested together with 11 more young people, students of other different universities. So this criminal case called students case. And at the first moment, of course we were afraid, but not so much. We didn't expect that it's gonna take so much time. We thought that we're gonna spend a few months in prison and then they will free us. And of course, it took some time to realize that it is a real, it can be really serious, the serious sentence.
Absolutely. And it really was 2.5 years. And tell me how that went. So, for one, I want to go back to that day. So, you made the decision to go to the protest, as you said. And I'd like to give our listeners a better idea of what motivated you, because we know that Lukashenko was president for a really long time. We know, if you go back, listeners, and read news articles from the previous elections that there was a quieter level of dissent, of questioning the validity of the elections. I can recall there were even pictures that you could see, at least in the Western media, of people climbing outside of windows of polling locations with boxes and then climbing back up ladders with new boxes. And this wasn't in the 2020 elections. I think this was the previous election. So there had been, every election, right? So there had been a quieter level of protest prior to this election. What in your lives, as you were experiencing as a young person, was really motivating you to take this risk and join these protests?
Um, in 2020 year, it were my first elections, so I had to start be interested in politics because it was first time I need to go and make my choice. And in the first day, when people knew first results of elections, we came out to streets for some peaceful demonstrations, because it was absolutely unbelievable, the results which government said to us that Lukashenko won with absolutely priority, like more
Right. I
than
think they said like 80%. Yeah. 80% or
80%,
more.
something like that. And of course, it was the biggest motivation, and people were angry, and we did not understand how is it possible to lie so much to people. And after that, as you mentioned, a lot of protests a lot of protests happened in Belarus. And when their studies started, the biggest motivation was to see how brutal and how violent government. I'm sorry.
How the authorities responded to these peaceful protests.
Yes, authorities. Sorry,
No, it's
authorities
okay.
responded so much violent and brutal to these peaceful protests. A lot of soldiers and militaries came against civilians, peaceful people, and a lot of young people were beaten. So me as a student, of course, I could not just not think about it and not
Let's stand
do
by.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I want people to understand, when we talk about the violence of the force that was used against peaceful protesters, protesters were beaten. Also, other things like rubber bullets were used against them and explosive devices to try to dissipate the crowds. And basically, it seemed from a Western point of view to just try to dissipate the force, because it was so impactful to see the streets of Minsk filled with peaceful protesters, filled with people in white and red shirts, often the color of the original flag of Belarus, and in a country where you'd never seen that before in modern history. And they just it seemed that they wanted to wipe that that site clean so that people could not see that the people had a voice and that they were finally going to use it against this one force that was refusing to give up power.
Yes, absolutely. And it was really painful. Also, for me, it was really painful to see how many military and milice uh, came out to uh, to against people. Of course, not so many as protesters, but when they uh, when they were coming back on their base in the evening, it was a really long line of different military technique, and it was so painful to see how they are afraid of just peaceful civilians.
Yeah. And so people were coming home from protests and they were often punished by these authorities on their way home, is what I understand from, again, what we've seen in Western media. Did you know of anyone who, came home from a protest and was detained, brought into their homes and questioned by the KGB, anything like that?
Yes. So, of course, after every protest, people were uh, terribly. A lot of people were terribly beaten, or they were arrested, and they were tortured in these isolators where they were taken, and some people came back home in a really bad state, or but some people even did not come home that day when they came to protest, and their relatives, of course, they were absolutely uh, afraid because they couldn't find their relatives. They didn't know where their relatives are, and it was really difficult to find any information uh, where the people. Uh,
Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah.
and I would say
So,
the
yeah.
conditions how authorities um, kept people, they were really terrible. They some people um, did not have food, water, anything there.
And so seeing this, hearing these stories early on in the protests, you couldn't stand beside, as you said, and you needed to take part. And so I understand it was November, so months after the beginning of the protests, you were protesting and detained. Tell me what that
Uh,
experience of being detained was like for you, what you experienced.
um, uh, the elections happened, presidential elections happened in August, and the most the biggest protests were in August, September, and during the studying year in September, October, and November, I took part in students' protests in my university. We just opposed violence, as you said, against students, because also a lot of students were expired from universities,
Expelled, yeah.
ex
Mm-hmm.
expelled, and
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of teachers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And So we just did peaceful actions at the breaks um, between classes. We just sang songs, for example, sang Belarusian songs, or just were staying in silence with flags or even without flags, just to show the protest. And It happens that in November, uh, 11 young people from different universities were arrested, and it happened so that I was arrested 2 weeks after them, so a
Mm.
little bit later. So I remember how I was uh, afraid. Uh, Everyone, it was the most um, popular topic these 2 weeks before I was arrested. Everyone uh, talked. Of course, we also did actions to support the students. And after 2 weeks, I was at home and I was arrested by KGB from home. But it was
Yeah.
not so unexpected for me um,
Mm.
as for students who were first, I would say
I
so. So
see.
I was kind of ready for that.
I
And
see.
of course, you can't be ready, but like I could expect something like that.
And that waiting, what was that experience like? That waiting and knowing that you may be arrested as well.
Uh, of at that time, you never know. I could leave Belarus, but I did not because I was thinking, why they arrest me? I didn't do
Mm.
um, anything bad, anything against the um, law.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so so
So there's that
it
push and
was.
pull, that feeling in your gut that maybe something could happen, but then this feeling of justice that, well, but I did nothing wrong.
Yes, yes. I did nothing wrong, and I hope that maybe it will not happen with me because
Mm.
I did not break the law.
And
Uh,
how were you arrested? How was that completed by the KGB?
it was in early morning. I was at home with my mom, and so I would say that I was lucky that I was not the first of our group of students,
Mm.
so I could make my mom ready. She was aware that some students already are arrested, and I said to her that it could happen that some people from milice or KGB can come. So
Mm.
she was aware not to open the door to anyone, and I also was a bit ready. I, of course, and my friends as well. So we knew if I text someone, like some people come to me, they already
Mm.
knew what to do and what is happening. So it was just in the morning. Uh, I just woke up. Actually, I woke up because they knocked the door, and we knew that we we don't need to open the door. So as we refused to open the door to them, they broke the door
Mm.
to our house with
Like a
This,
battering ram, like a big.
yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then what happened?
Mm, they they did. I don't have English for that. They looked my house.
Mm-hmm.
They were looking for some flags, some
Mm-hmm.
proofs that I took part in protests.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I as as uh, uh, as other students already were in prison, the time I had time to write a letter to one of my friends there in
Mm-hmm.
prison, and he answered to me from KGB, and I had this letter, and they found this letter, and they took it and attached to my criminal case as well.
Wow.
So they looked in my house, and they said to me and my mom that we're going just for some investigation, and I will come back home in the evening, but of course I didn't.
Wow. And you had just turned 19 at this time.
Yes, yes.
And so I just think it's incredible, and it shows how strongly you felt about what you were doing and the necessity of it all. The planning that went into you understanding the potential consequences of what had occurred and trying to plan for it and keep yourself safe, but also your family safe.
Yes, of course. At that moment, mostly I was afraid about and I worried about my family. Actually, also, I was uh, surprised.
You're good.
Um, I was surprised how brave and strong my mom was, because
Mm,
when I had to say goodbye to her, when I already were going, uh, I just hugged her, and I was going to cry, but my mom, she stood so resistance and so brave. She didn't show that she afraid, or she that something bad happened. Uh, so I am really proud of her.
Tatyana is coming to me from Czechia, where she now lives and studies. And so we lost our Wi-Fi connection there for a minute, but she's back, and I'm so grateful. So Tatyana, you were sharing with us the experience of being arrested, and just the experience of coping with the knowledge that would happen, and how amazed you were with your mother's resilience and bravery in spite of also knowing that her daughter was in danger.
Yes, it's absolutely true. I'm really, uh, I am so proud of her. She was super resistant.
Yeah.
Um, yes, and I would say for me as a young girl at that moment, of course, it was unexpected, I would say. I was ready to be expelled from the university for my actions. I expected this, but I did not, I would say I did not expect uh, some more serious things.
Right. For
Um,
peaceful protesting, as you said, for singing, for standing
yes, yes.
quietly during school breaks. So not disrupting class, not skipping out on your studies, but just during breaks, peaceful
Yes,
protesting.
yes, yes.
Right. So share with us your experience if you feel comfortable. So you're taken from your home for, they said just to interview you and bring you back. What really happened that day and then the following months and years?
They started to execute investigation. Um, they were asking me few hours about everything what I did, and in the evening, uh, they put me to the isolator of KGB. Um, and
Explain what that is. What is the isolator of the KGB for people who don't know?
um, it is jail, and it is place where people stay during the investigation. And it is a really, really old building from, I don't know, maybe 1920
Mm.
years of building,
Mm-hmm.
something like that, or
Mm-hmm.
1930s.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, we we were in a really small room, uh, room for three people, about 5 uh, or 6 square meters,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And yes, I would say uh, in really strict conditions. We're not allowed to go out from this room. We had just walks
Mm.
for 1 hour a day.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like some like a regular prison from movies. Because
Mm-hmm.
before that I saw jail only from movies, uh,
Right. Right.
TV shows, and I've absolutely felt like that, like in some adventure movie, uh,
Mm.
when you are in some cage, a lot of
Yes.
military around.
How were you treated there?
Um, so as I said, it is we treated in a really small room. And of course, it makes psychological pressure
Mm.
because in KGB isolator, the room was so small that two people couldn't like walk near each other. We could move
Mm.
only if we meet, we could move only in one side or another. So there were not
Wow.
enough white
Yeah. That
width
gives it
for
some
two
perspective.
people.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. And so we had walks on the fresh air, 1 hour a day, in also in just a small room from concrete with the cage above, so we could see sky only through their cage.
Mm.
And we had food 3 times a day. Um, in and soldiers, they gave food to us from through the small window in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yes, that's
Yeah.
how it is. And yeah.
Sure. Sure. So you mentioned that psychologically it was very challenging to be in the isolator.
Yes, yes, of course, everything there in Isolator is done for making a psychological pressure to people, uh, because you never know when KGB officers come to you to ask you new questions. Time to
Mm-hmm.
time, they take people for like so-called interview, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and as it is unexpected. Again, you can be ready for this. Sometimes they Uh, they don't let lawyers come for this for this talk, which
Right.
is against the law, but sometimes it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, so
Mm-hmm.
and they treated um, I would say better to women better, but men the conditions for men are much strict and
Mm.
much more strict and worse. And
Mm-hmm.
as I know, uh, they even can beat or torture men
Mm-hmm.
during the
Mm-hmm.
investigation.
Were you able to sleep when you were in the isolator?
Yes, I was able to sleep. Um, luckily, I'm in a good psychological uh, way. So
Mm-hmm.
I slept well, but we were
Mm-hmm.
allowed to sleep only in the
Mm-hmm.
night, and when we're not allowed to sleep during the day, we even could be punished for that.
I see. What would a punishment look like?
Just just some papers actually,
Hmm.
some documents that we have some um, issues.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
yes, uh,
Did that feel like more psychological pressure to make sure that you were behaving, that you were controlled by them? Or was it actually used in your sentencing that you were behaving a certain way in the isolator?
it could be used in a sentence because all these
Mm-hmm.
documents they were attached to
Mm-hmm.
all documents, and
Mm-hmm.
also when when you when after the sentence you move from isolator to real prison to the penal
Mm-hmm.
colony, and there if you have um, a lot of so how to call it uh, this papers with what you did wrong.
Right,
Uh,
right.
in the colony, you can be punished in a lot of different ways.
I see.
Some, like they can not let you have a parcel from your relatives, or they
Hmm.
can not let you have a date with your relatives, or even put in separate isolator
I see. I
from other
see.
people.
Which is another form of psychological torture and
Yes,
control.
absolutely. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So you were in the isolator, and then let us know, how long were you there before you were then taken to be sentenced, and then what happened after that?
Um, the investigation uh, took about 6 months, and 4 more months we were judged. We had 25 uh, uh, judgments. Yeah, so I spent 10 months in Isolator, and after that, I was replaced to the colony,
I see.
where to the women colony where only women. Uh,
And what was that experience like in the colony compared to the isolator?
uh, the conditions there were m- were much worse, I would say, and
Mm.
much stricter.
Mm.
Because in Isolator we just spent all our days in the room, but we were allowed to read books, and we were not forced to work. So it was okay, but in the colony, everyone have to go to the factory and work. We produced clothes there, clothes for milice, soldiers, and for workers on other factories.
Wow.
So the conditions are really rude there, because we worked 6 or 7 hours, 6 days a week, and after the work, we also did some other physical work, which wasn't paid. Something like that.
Wow. And you mentioned some of the psychological tactics to control you and other people when you were in the isolator, other than this really strict condition with regards to your work. What other experiences did you have there?
Also, one of the biggest problems, medical care in colony, the lack of medical care. If someone was ill, it was almost impossible to have some medical treatment. And um, of course, there are some cases when women died in colony. So yes, I would
I
say.
can't imagine the psychological harm that these events have imposed upon you. You were 19 when you were first detained and then went into the isolator and then into the penal colony. This was a 2.5-year sentence that you received. Take us back to how you felt when you were on trial and you received that news as to what your sentence would be.
It was the last judge, when judge read our sentence. Until the last day, I had a hope that we will come back home, that maybe they can give us less strict sentence, like just home arrest, so-called. But they said that we are sentenced to 2 years and 6 months. And it was difficult to realize it in one moment. It took some time to realize what really happened. I would say so.
Absolutely. And you mentioned hope, and I think hearing your story and the story of the people of Belarus, hope is like the invisible string that seems to be pulling people forward, right? Despite what's occurred, there's hope for the future, there's hope for change, there's hope for justice. So how did you mentally get through those 2.5 years after you were sentenced?
Support and attention of people. It gave a lot of hope, and it was the only help how to stay in good conditions mentally and psychologically.
Yeah.
I received a lot of letters from many people, from Belarusians and even from outside the Belarus, from different countries, United
Yeah.
States and
Yeah.
Finland, France, and many more. Um, we, just people, I don't know them. They
Mm-hmm.
just supported me and a lot of other political prisoners. So it was really
Mm-hmm.
important. It gave so much hope and power to stay to the uh, it was really important to understand that people don't forget about us and that they support us.
Yeah, that being seen is so important as you're going through. Those people may not be able to help you. They may not be able to get you out of the penal colony, but they can buoy you up. They can help you with their support and just acknowledging you. I think that's so important. And I know my listeners are so moved by your story, by what you've been through, and they also want to know how they can help after you were released from the penal colony, from the women's colony. What was that like for you?
It was also, of course, difficult emotionally. Um, Before the day of realization, you're trying to imagine what I want to do first and what I will do in future.
Mm,
And but when just came out, uh, I've I would say that it was difficult to feel something because you're
mm,
emotionally overflowed, and
yeah,
it also took some time to 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 come to psychologically back to psychologically good conditions.
yeah,
And uh, first time it was um, like really difficult to realize what happens. Uh, Everyone wanted to talk with me.
mm,
So many people, but I was absolutely um, unused to normal life. I was
mm,
not used to see cars on the streets.
mm,
I was not used to move freely without other people to go to the shops.
mm-hmm,
I It was unusual to take phone in hands and to text something in the first time.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And then
I think.
also emotionally, how was it coming back to your family and your friends? And especially your mom, who'd been so resilient through all of this. What was reunification with her like for you?
Um, I can't even express it in words how it was. Of course, it was really touching, and it was difficult to believe that it is not for some short time.
Mm,
Uh, I remember it even was. Uh, I was afraid. First day I was afraid to go to sleep because
mm,
I was afraid that it is some dream and I will wake up again back in prison. And yes, first time it was um, we wanted to talk with I talked so much with my relatives, with my mom. I hugged
mm.
her, but still wasn't enough. Like you can't have enough
Oh,
communication with their friends and relatives.
wow. And so you were released and you had that precious time that you'd been missing. You were 19 when you were first detained, and you were 21 when you came back to society and to your family. now you live in Czechia or the Czech Republic.
Yes, yes.
Tell me about that process of how you made that decision to immigrate, what motivated you, and what the future looks like for you.
Uh, Now I'm a student of Czech Technical University. I study here, and when I was in Belarus, I understood that it is impossible for me to come back to Belarusian university. They will not uh, allow me to study, to continue studies. So I decided uh, to enter university somewhere in Europe. Here in Czech Republic, I had friends who already moved here, and that's why I chose Czech Republic. I'm absolutely happy to be here now, but uh, I had to leave Belarus after 2 months, maybe a little bit more, after I released. And of course, it was not enough. I planned to stay in Belarus. I released in December, and I planned to stay in Belarus till the beginning of studying year, till August or September, something like that. But because of pressure, again from authorities and police, I had to leave after 2 months.
I see. And do you fear, Tatyana, for your relatives who still live in Belarus now, all these years later? This was 2020 when the election happened, and now it's 2024. And the president-elect, the person, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who is widely believed to be the president-elect of Belarus, is living in exile, and Alexander Lukashenko remains in power. How do you see the experience of your family there? What concerns do you have? And what do you see for your future of being able to go back?
Of course, I worry about my relatives, uh, and more closer next elections are, more I'm afraid of their futures there in Belarus. But we don't know how much time it will take us to make Belarus free. So I don't know. I just, as you said, all Belarusians have hope, um, really strong hope, and of course I hope that it will not take too much time, and I will be able to come back in some near future.
I hope so too, Tatyana. Can you share with the audience what you're doing now to promote a free Belarus? Because I want to share the way we met was actually at a screening for the film The Accidental President about Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the again believed president-elect of Belarus, who is currently living in exile. And this was a screening at the Parliament in Prague, Czech Republic, and you were there on a panel of speakers bravely representing political prisoners of Belarus who are featured in the film, of course. So tell us about what you are doing in such a brave way, being so generous with your story to try to help promote a free Belarus.
For me, as a former Belarusian student and as a student now, the main task is to help students and young people. Um, yes, because the Belarusian students need more help and support because still there are so many students in Belarusian prisons, and even more young people are also forced to leave Belarus because because of danger being arrested or accused in some crime.
Right.
So it's really important now to help young people outside Belarus to continue their studies uh, in Czech Republic or in other Europe countries.
Yeah. And it's
And
important to
it's
point out, yeah, how that drains the country of its future when the political situation is such and the danger to people who are forward thinking and want to build a future for free Belarus. When those people have to leave the country, they take their talents with them.
yes, absolutely. The number of young people who moved from Belarus is horrible, and mm, the most talented and mm, ambitious young people they live, and uh, in future it's gonna be a big problem, lack of young people in all spheres.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
How can we, as non-citizens of Belarus, or even citizens of Belarus that are living elsewhere, how can we support your efforts for a free Belarus?
um, it's crucial uh, to make attention to put attention on Belarus and make it popular because uh, now the truth that attention of people is attention of people to Belarus decreases because also other happenings occur. Uh, Attention of people is on the Ukraine now, on the war of
Mm-hmm.
uh, Israel, and so it's really important to uh, just to make um, to keep attention on Belarusian problem.
And are there any other ways that people can be supportive to students? Any ways that the people of Prague, specifically with the students that you're working with, any other ways that people can support your cause?
Um, Also, it is, of course, it is very important to support political prisoners. Unfortunately, nowadays it's almost um, almost impossible that people in prisons um, know about this support
Mm,
because they even if we send letters in prison, they will not give these letters to people um, because I, I think after 2022 year
mm-hmm,
they stopped correspondence, not from
mm,
relatives, and political prisoners are allowed to have letters only from close relatives or even not from them. But
I see.
still, it is very important to still send these letters just to show authorities that we still support Belarusians. Um,
Yeah.
that we didn't forget and we didn't give up. And
That's the hope.
yes, yes, yes. Um, Time to time, uh, actions take place in different European countries uh, to support political prisoners. So you can come and support, support them.
Thank you so much, Tatyana. I am in such awe of your bravery, your resilience, and I can say that something that comes through when you talk about these experiences is this feeling of gratitude that you have despite everything you've been through for being here and being able to talk about it and being able to support others. And I am so grateful for the efforts that you're doing. And I also, as someone who was watching from afar, from safety, the protests and the demonstrations, the feeling of hope that you felt swelling in your chest was something that you hadn't dared to feel for a long time for the people of Belarus. And after this interview with you and watching the screening of the film, which I highly recommend once it's available publicly that everyone watch, The Accidental President, I really hope that people are inspired to hope despite the challenges and inspired to help in any way that they can the citizens of Belarus to work towards a free Belarus, because this benefits everyone. And as was said at the screening that we went to, if Belarus had been supported and if Svetlana Tikhanovskaya had become president, what would the Ukrainian conflict look like now? How would that have been handled if there was someone in power in Belarus who didn't allow, the first missiles to be launched from Belarusian soil? So I think it's really important to understand these problems aren't isolated. We live in a very interconnected world. And when we support one another and freedom, we support ourselves and the whole world. And so it's everyone's problem. If someone is not free, if someone is being persecuted, it is everyone's problem. We all need to come together to support and help one another.
Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely agree that in nowadays modern society, human rights is a common problem, and more democratic countries should support countries with lack of democracy and
It requires a common solution. It's a common problem, and it requires a common shared solution and effort. And thank you so much for the efforts that you're making, despite the risks and despite, I'm sure, the pain that you experience when you're reliving these stories. The power of sharing them, it's immense, and I'm grateful for you sharing it with our audience today.
Thank you so much for invitation. I'm really pleased I'm really pleased of your interest, and I'm so thankful to given me this platform to speak about Belarus. It's really important, not only for me but for all Belarusians.
Thank you so much, Tatyana, for being here. And thank you to listeners for being here. I hope you learned something, not just about Belarus, but about the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of hope and what it can mean for our lives. Please leave your comments, share this episode widely. We really want the word to get out about not only the resilience, but also the ongoing issues that people are suffering from in Belarus and the need for us to all work towards a free Belarus. I hope you stay safe and take care, and I will talk to you soon. I can't bear another moment. I'm getting unfair. 'Cause there's nothing here to make me wanna stay. Impulse, lead the way. Impulse, don't lead me wrong. Take me where I belong forever. And if that's where you are, never be too far to be together. Everybody's searching, not everybody's finding, so we're one ahead. Everybody's wanting, and I want you to be with me.